Good afternoon. Welcome to Communication Access Connect. We will start with our team introductions. My name is William Del Rosario. I am 22-year-old male Hispanic Filipino. My pronouns are him. I am a student intern with Disability Voices United, and I'll be your host today. Darlene, would you like to go next?
Hi, thanks, William. I'm Darlene Hansen, and I'm the Director of Communication Rights here with Disability Voices United. I'm a white female, older person, not old, but older than some people. And let's see, I have gray hair. I used to have blonde hair. I have gray hair now. And, and I go with the pronouns she and her. And I'm sitting in front of my Disability Voices United virtual background, and it's blue. Thanks, William. Welcome to the presentation today, everyone. Oh, should I go on to the next person? Okay, I'm going to introduce Tim, and Tim's going to tell us about himself.
Hi all, my name is Tim, and I am the Assistant Director of Communication Rights here at DVU. I'm wearing a blue shirt with shorts.
Ladies.
I don't think they
Hi, everyone.
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
Oh, hi, everyone. So my name is Vayas. So I am currently a student, and I'm about to enter my third year of the Master's in Rehabilitation Counseling program at California State, Los Angeles. I'm a white male with brown hair, and I'm super excited to see what we're going to be able to learn today. I would say, how about Nina, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Vayas. Hi, I'm Nina Spiegelman. I'm the Policy Director for DVU. Really excited to be here. And just quickly, she, her are my pronouns. I've got a green background and very stupidly a green shirt. I'm kind of melding in. I'm proudly like really old and so happy to be so. And I am really, same as Vayas, really excited for this session today, and welcome everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Today, we have 4 guest speakers who will be helping us learn more about getting communication equipment and services. We chose this topic because communication is a right that is voiced loudly, but getting the support we need is often silenced. Communication is a need everywhere, and how to advocate for equipment or services is a common question we hear. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers. With us today, we have Lauren Mennig and Maria de Leon from AAC Goodwill Associates, and Bruce Fleming from Talk to Me Technologies.
I'm sorry, part of this message cut off. We also have Bernadette Kennard from Prerequisite Consulting. And
Lauren and Maria will begin the discussion with how to get started.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Mennig. I'll just do a brief introduction. So I am the program manager at ATEC, which is a program of Goodwill of Orange County. And first off, I'm also glad to see so many familiar faces and names on in this group. I am a female. I entered into my middle age Japanese woman who is in my bedroom. It's blurred in the background, so you cannot see the mess, hopefully. And I will just briefly introduce Maria because we are going to both talk about this first topic together. So Maria, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria. I'm the speech language pathologist at ATEC. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm wearing like a light blue shirt. I have brown hair, and I'm in my office at home.
All right, so the question we were prompted with was just basically how to get started, just the authorization and assessment process. So Maria can definitely chime in at different parts as well. And many of you probably are very familiar with this process, but we get asked this all the time. We have parents, individuals who are interested in AT, professionals, how do we get started? And usually my first question is what is it that you're looking to do? Do you already have a device and you're looking for training? Are you looking for assessment, trying to identify what type of AT or AAC is appropriate? And then from there, really exploring appropriate funding and referral options. I think Bruce is going to talk more on funding as well, but that's a big part of the process, is really identifying those resources that are at your fingertips. And there is at every stage, but as you all probably know, AAC and AT funding is pretty challenging sometimes. So often I start with, if it's somebody who's school age, are you early intervention, 0 to 3, is an adult, and kind of what those options are. So really starting to look at things like, if you're school age, we want to explore, the appropriate funding and referral resources such as school districts or regional center, Department of Rehab if you're an adult. And so, really just exploring what those options are and informing you what that process looks like. But I guess before I go into that more in detail, and definitely I'm sure other panelists have input as well, but Maria, I guess, what would you say are just identifying factors or things you might want to consider in terms of, where to start? What service am I looking for? What am I trying to do?
Yes. So sometimes one of the main questions is like, how do I know that I need an AAC assessment or an AT assessment? I would say that if you're a child or if you're an adult and you are having difficulties with communicating, I would just, as simple as that, I would say that you might be a candidate for AAC. If you have difficulties with maybe accessing a computer, reading or writing, you can also be a candidate for AT. So the important thing is maybe reaching out and trying to figure out your different sources of funding, and then trying to dig to see which one would be most appropriate for you or your child. But yeah, I'm one of the believes that AAC is such a great tool, and I think that everybody should have it. But I know that you have to go through like a whole evaluation process. But there's a lot of resources out there, and kind of being aware of like the resources that are out there for you. And this depends, like Lauren was saying, it depends on if you're a school age child, an adult, and maybe you're an older individual. So yeah.
And just to kind of piggyback on that and just share a little bit more about that, is that a lot of times, not a lot of times, sometimes in certain situations, certain funding sources might say, oh, there's a prerequisite to accessing assistive technology or AAC services or an evaluation. Really, it's something that should be explored if that is something that individual is seeking. It may not be the device that you had in mind, but definitely to assess and at least see what is out there and is appropriate. And so, we've had some families who had challenges with maybe a school district where they said, oh, you have to meet this criteria in order to get an assessment. Just be aware of the fact that you do have a right to get that assessment to explore AT, and typically from, our work is that, there is no prerequisite in order to access an assessment. But really pressing on and knowing that you can still make that request and what the other options are. So for example, for a school age child, certainly exploring school district as a resource to refer, whether it be an internal AT assessment done through the district or outside, procured through a different service provider. But if you get that denial, then you can explore that additional options such as regional center or insurance and so forth to explore other types of AT resource services. And then obviously for adults, we're looking at Department of Rehab, especially if the goal is employment or the possibility of, going to school to get a job. I apologize. My son just walked in the door. Hold on.
Yeah, that's okay. So she has a toddler at home, and he sometimes walks into meetings like this. But like how Lauren was saying, it's really, I think that the ultimate idea is that there is a funding source out there for you, and it's just a matter of exploring it. And I guess kind of like meetings like this is really helpful to kind of be involved, so we are aware of how we can address the funding source.
I apologize for that. Somebody is watching him, but wasn't watching him that second. So yeah, I'm not sure where Maria left off, but just really exploring those funding referral sources. And I mean, we can definitely go more in depth about what that referral process looks like. But certainly there are options, or insurance is a funding source. There are service providers who take insurance if you want to go outside of the school district or regional center, or privately, like getting assessments funded, but really exploring that there are options and how to make that request with those specific providers. I know us, but I'm sure a lot of the other panelists as well will talk through and work through what those options are, because it's very individualized, because it really depends on the type of support you're looking for. For example, if you're looking for support for caregivers or parents, district is not going to typically fund any of those types of trainings or support. So you might really want to explore other options to fund and get those services. So really just working through the different options that are available and starting that process. So, and just one kind of quick note that I did want to mention as well is that it is a process. I always try to share with people, a lot of us will help facilitate this process, but it does take some time. And unfortunately, following assessment, we aren't always able to get that device right away and start training. So just knowing that it does take some time in managing expectations throughout that process, but also accessing other resources in the interim. So say you're waiting for your device getting funded through insurance, it sometimes takes some time exploring options through the various loan programs, working with the vendors to see if there's devices available for loan while you're waiting for funding, or if equipment is broken, or you just need to train on something while you're waiting for something to get facilitated by school district or something like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for both of those.
Next, Bernadette will help us understand the differences between assistive technology and augmentative and alternative communication and what we are asking for.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm definitely excited to be here. In terms of description, I would just say that I am an African-American female with wavy dreadlocks and a sleeveless blouse of abstract patterns with a virtual background that I wish was my real office. And I'm wearing glasses. Okay. This question that was posed, what are you looking for? And I think this was a great question, because so often, sometimes AT and AAC are used interchangeably, but as we are talking about the process of assessment, it is important to understand the difference, and just going into it from the beginning, knowing that AT is an umbrella term, and assistive technology covers several, up to 5 different areas, possibly more, depending on your needs. So when you request an AAC assessment, you are requesting a concentrated evaluation on a person's communication needs. with hope that you will find technology that pairs to match those unmet needs. In contrast, an assistive technology assessment you're looking for technology that can be used to compensate for a variety of different areas or deficits, such as auditory needs, vision needs, mobility needs, computer access, and if you're in school, accessing your curriculum. So all of those things fall under assistive technology. So there is a difference. If a person has complex communication needs, you really can't go wrong with requesting assistive technology, because then everything must be addressed. And if communication isn't your specific area of need, then a statement can be made about that, but all the other areas should be addressed. So, and if you don't, and you only have communication needs, then requesting specifically an AAC assessment is appropriate. Whether you're doing this in the school, I love how my colleagues talked about the different funding sources, because that does relate to how you get the assessment. Within the schools, I would want to mark that it is accessible by requesting it. There is no rules. You can just make a request. Some people feel, oh, we have to wait for an IEP date, and then maybe I can get an assessment. As a parent or as an adult, you have, well, talking about students. So as a parent, you have the right to request an AAC assessment at any time. We do recommend that you do it in writing. And when you do so, we also recommend that you ask for someone that has experience to do it. A school district has the option to have anybody do it that they choose. But if you request that someone does have experience that does it, that at least begins the push in the right direction. The results you can discuss later. And then, as was Lauren mentioned, if you need to find an additional source, then you have the right to do that as well, if you're concerned about the results of the assessment. I want to point out that just know that getting an AAC assessment doesn't always equate to getting an advice, because there are different types of AAC. We have a low, a mid, and a high tech. So someone could do an AAC assessment and the recommendation could be a communication book. Someone else could do an AAC assessment. The recommendation might be a high-tech device. So I want to just, be clear, because some people think AAC, oh, I'm going to get, a $6,000 talking box, and that might not be the case for it to be an assessment. The follow-up question also that I think was fielded to me was describing how to assure follow-up services. That is super important. And when you're dealing with the school district or any source, even such as regional center, you want to be involved with the paper trail. If it's not documented, it doesn't happen. But when it comes to follow-up services, my advice would just be as specific as possible. That means having it document how many hours of training are going to occur. It's not okay just to say student will receive training. So documenting how many hours of training will be conducted, documenting who is involved in the training. Really, team assessments are the best assessments. And I know in an ideal world, a lot of times you have one person go in. So you want to be patient with the process and encourage the evaluator to communicate with as many members of the team as possible. And when it comes to assuring those follow-up services, make sure that it's documented that you want those support personnel involved with the training as well. And that's one of the ways that I think it's real important to maintain follow-up services and that they are provided. Again, if school is your funding, then it needs to be in the paperwork. There are other additional resources when it comes to medical resources. When an AAC report is written for medical approval, there's a place in that report as well to document what are the goals that you think you should be working on and estimates of how many sessions should be used to work on each of those specific goals. So again, it goes back to what is documented initially. That's, I think, my answer on those two topics. If anyone, I'm sure we'll have more questions at the end. I don't want to overspeak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. Great information.
Thank you.
Lauren, Maria, and Bruce will explain how to assure and describe follow-up services.
Do you want to start with Bruce? William?
Cool. Hey, thanks everybody. somebody raise their hand, let me know you can hear me okay. Okay, good, thanks. I'm a middle-aged white guy with short cropped hair, wearing a medium blue shirt in front of a equally medium blue background. My pronouns are he, him, and I work for Talk to Me Technologies. I'm a AAC consultant, meaning I'm a local sales consultant or product representative for the company here in Southern California. And having worked in this field for 20 years or so, I've got a range of experience. And so what I wanted to briefly share is some of my perspective, but then also answer any of those questions and go from there. In my role, I'm about promoting the products that my company makes, but also being a complete an extra resource to everybody involved. And everybody involved with this process to help choose a speech system or communication system really is a team that starts with the client or consumer, the person who's going to use it. We have to keep reminding ourselves that hey, this person who's going to be using the device really should be leading us as much as they can. But they may be supported by parents or family members and other personal advocates that may help them. And then there's speech language pathologists who may help them choose a best communication system is a pivotal member of that team. Us consultants are here to, of course, promote our products, but also we learn a heck of a lot through a process of working with somebody and trying out our systems. We are essentially a point of contact with the company so that we can help tap into the resources the company can provide. So that can be equipment to use during an evaluation process, equipment for a client, a prospective client to use for a few weeks to try it out on their own. And then also the resources to help get a system funded through their medical insurance. Besides school and Department of Rehab, medical insurance is a big way that a lot of folks get their system covered. Something about that, though, is there seem to be essentially 3 different ways a system can be covered unless somebody's going to pay out of their own pocket, which these are really expensive. It's not often that happens. Each different funding source has a different idea of why they're going to provide or pay for it. So anything that would be purchased by a school or a school district is usually going to be in support of the goals and objectives in an IEP or individual education plan. If insurance, medical insurance is going to be tapped in to cover a device, then insurance wants to see why this system is medically necessary for the person to use it. Educational goals and things like that are irrelevant to medical insurance. And the Department of Rehab, if they're going to perhaps consider buying a device, they'll want to see how it's going to support the individual in getting higher education and being employed and being productive in their jobs. So very different audiences for the outcome of that assessment and the way a report or recommendation is written. So this part of my job is to help anybody involved with that justification, make sure it's hitting the right audience in the right way. Sometimes parents will say, well, you know, if we get it through the school district, is that all we have to do? There are some good reasons to get a system for a youngster covered through insurance as well, or instead. People can double dip. Ultimately, they can seek assistance from a school district for a device to be used in school and seek insurance coverage for one outside of school. One does not replace the other, and ultimately having several systems is beneficial. I thought I was going to say one more thing about that and it already left my brain. There are so many different kinds of communication devices these days. Many of them are simply iPads or similar tablets with an application or program on them. Some are very specialized to fit a specific capability or a person's challenge by using an alternative access method like eye tracking or head tracking. And that can be vastly different or a vastly different setup for somebody than for a person who's just going to use a touch screen. And that's where having other folks involved, such as an occupational therapist, or an assistive technology specialist with experience with alternative access can make a huge difference. So there's a little point to places like ATEC at Goodwill and Santa Ana, because they can provide that interdisciplinary team kind of assessment. That kind of technology is constantly changing. So finding experts who know it can make a huge difference. Parents often can use the internet to find out a whole lot, but it's okay to tap into folks like us to better understand the nuances of some of this technology and get our perspectives on which ones really work for people. I had a couple notes, and I think I want to just check to make sure I'm not missing anything that was so important when I wrote them down. Probably one of the biggest things is that going through this process to help a person find a communication system really doesn't end when they get a device. That's the beginning actually of a whole new part of this adventure, is once they have their own system, helping them learn to use it, helping them navigate social situations where communication is difficult with a speech device. Most of the world doesn't understand what a person is doing when they're using a communication device to communicate with us. So helping that individual, helping parents and family members learn how to support them is a whole nother part of the process. That's it for now. Go ahead.
This is Lauren from ATEC. I just wanted to piggyback on some stuff that Bernadette mentioned about that follow-up services and the paper trail. Really, like, and what Bruce said is that, you know, getting the device is one part, and that can often be challenging, but really it's that training and follow-up that really leads to ultimate success of using that type of AT or AAC. So a lot of times when we're looking at that is whatever, you know, entity provided that assessment, or maybe a trial period even following the assessment, if it was a school district, or whoever, make sure you have that report handy, because that report's going to tell you a lot of information in how to push services forward, whether it's through us or other service providers. In that report, we're also going to recommend, and Maria could probably touch on this as well, is that might set aside certain goals, what training should look like. You know, is it, you know, training at the school site? Is it training with parents in the community? And oftentimes that's determined a little bit by the funding source of how that service was ultimately provided. But that is the great place to start when you're saying, hey, we got the device, great, now what? Go to that report. There should always be, for the most part, some sort of recommendation about follow-up training services and what is recommended. Now, it could ultimately look a little different once it comes to fruition, but usually there is that. So that's your justification to push those services forward. So if you got the report through the district, but let's say you move school districts or something like that, get that report, bring it to your case carrier, say, hey, you know, we have this, how can we make sure that this gets in the IEP goals? Or how can I get the school team to get involved with knowing how to utilize this device in the classroom or whatever, or even using it for other outside funding sources, because they could say, hey, you know what, you already got the device to the school district, but let's say regional centers open to doing training. Well, great, we could still use that. It might look a little different because it's not necessarily the school setting. We might be in the community or in the home or whatever, but we can use that as a basis to help justify services moving forward and ultimately making that request. And like Bernadette said too, making sure you get that in writing, even if it's, whether it's with the district, whether it's with your service coordinator at regional center, your counselor at department rehab, use that and then have that report handy as your justification to move those services forward. And again, then you establish that paper trail and you can follow it from there. Now, they can ultimately deny it, which is unfortunate, but it's also good, because if you get that in writing, then you can go to the next one, you know. So if they deny, then okay, great, I'm going to go to regional center and their funder of last resort, and I got my denial from the district, I got my denial from whatever, insurance or whatever. Great, now you're payer of last resort, and here's my justification to help push that forward. So
yeah, and I kind of wanted to add back to what Bruce was saying about having a device at home and at school. That's definitely a good idea. I usually recommend for families to try, like, especially if it's a school-age child, to get that child in evaluation through the school district, because like we're talking about right now, the IEP will follow them wherever they go. And though it's like a binding contract, right? So whatever is on that IEP, professionals and the people that are working with your child have to follow it. So if it does say AAC, it does say training hours, it does say different accommodations that are specific to this individual, then that would be with them forever. So every time we do get a referral from a school-age child, the first thing, if they are a school age, it's trying to reach that school district and come with an agreement to do an AAC evaluation. I still do my evaluation, and it's like, I tell parents, like, you can tell them that they can use mine if they don't want to go through the whole process. And some school districts here in California, or at least in Southern California, they do end up using my report, and they just kind of follow through with the recommendations, which is the training and the device. Something that has happened lately was that there was this program, and I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It was, what was it? The voice options program. We got a referral with a family that they went through the voice option program, but because they did not get an evaluation by an SLP or someone with knowledge about AAC, they ended up choosing the wrong system, because the voice option programs, they gave you an option to choose from like 3 or 4, I don't know if it was 4 or 5 different applications, and the family chose the wrong one. So now they've reached out, and I did the evaluation, and it wasn't the right application for this individual, and now we have to start all over again. So again, going back to the beginning, it's really important to get that evaluation. And like Bernadette was saying, like, if you have somebody that has some experience with AAC, you at least, once the individual does get that evaluation, you have a starting point. I always say that the AAC evaluation, because AAC is so complicated and so individualized for each client, an evaluator can't come in the first day and say, okay, this device is going to work 100%. Like, no, it's like a trial and error process, but at least if they do have some experience, you have a really good place to start from to try to decide like what device or language system or any additional accessories that this individual might need for their future. But I definitely would say that if it is a school-age child, try to get that IEP and the IEP team involved. There's the IDEA law, and I'm sure Disability Voices United know all about it. There's a bunch of laws that say that they have to do it. Basically, they legally have to do it.
And just real quick, I know we're talking a lot about school age. So in case you're not school age, or you're not, in that system, or you're an adult, or not in there yet because it's 0 to 3, just know that other entities also have similar plans in place. So, if it's regional center, it's their IPP. If it's Department of Rehab, I think it's a IPE, a lot of piece lettered plans, but basically a lot of these entities have that. So again, encouraging that service coordinator at regional center to include that into their IPP. They can always do an amendment to it too, to include assistive technology, training, evaluation, XYZ on that. And so just making sure that it's, again, kind of what Bernadette said, again, just getting it in writing, getting it into these formal plans. That way too, it can follow you. So if you move out of the catchment area for a regional center, or you move to a different, or use a different office from Department of Rehab, those plans follow you. So it will be helpful then to justify and follow up on those services, especially if there's a lapse, you get a new coordinator or whatever, you have that to help facilitate ongoing services, and hopefully won't be too much of a time span in between.
Great. Thank you, everyone. That was wonderful. Does do any of our speakers have anything that they didn't get to say that they wanted to say? Bruce, we were wondering, did you say everything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, thank you. That was perfect. That was just, I think, what most of our conversations are here on communication access every month. So what we are, go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing that came to my mind. I hadn't planned to say it, but it got mentioned. And I just want to point out the fact that sometimes we say denial, and Lauren mentioned really good that there are sources that are made just for the people that have received denials. So a lot of times we go through even our insurance and families feel devastated because, oh no, we've been denied. But even if your goal is to use your medical insurance, a denial is not devastation. So I've known families that have appealed and have appealed a second time and have appealed a third time and then received what they were looking for. So I just want to encourage families to not feel like, oh, my insurance denied, then appeal it. That's just, it's part of the process. Sometimes it's the yucky side of the process, but it doesn't mean that you won't end up getting what you need. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
That's important cheerleading, Bernadette. We all need to know that, unfortunately, I mean, it makes you upset that you have to spend so much time arguing with people, but there is a process, and you know, if you can stick it out, it can happen. I want to thank you guys and tell you what's going to happen. So I'm going to put the opportunity to put questions into the chat. We're all available for questions, most importantly, our panel here. But before we move to that, we have with us today Megan. I don't know if you guys remember Megan from our original days here. And she was with DRC, Disability Rights California, and she has an opportunity to share that's topic related. Thanks, Megan. Now just unmute yourself. There you go.
There we go. Hi, it's nice to be back. And it feels like such great timing. We're just talking about all these different funding streams for getting what you need and all the frustrations that come with that. So I know a lot of you are probably familiar with Disability Rights California, but we are California's protection and advocacy system. So we're a nonprofit law firm that helps people with disabilities with a whole variety of disability related legal issues. And I'm here today just to remind everyone that, you know, if you come out of a discussion like this one and you have questions about your legal rights that are lingering, you know, related to Department of Rehabilitation, the school district, regional center, all those fun systems, Medi-Cal, we're happy to talk with you individually and do an intake to at least get you some information about your rights and then possibly some additional assistance depending on your individual situation. So if you have a burning question right now and you're ready to sign up to do an intake, I'm going to, let me just get the right link here and drop it in the chat, and you can click right through while we're talking today, and it's a pretty simple form to fill out just so that we have contact information to be able to call you back, and we would try to get back to you within about a week. So if you fill out the form and you don't hear back from us within a week, it might be that we tried to call and we missed you and weren't able to leave a voicemail, or we tried reaching out at the email you provided and it went to your junk folder. So if it's been that long and you haven't heard back, feel free to call us or to you know, dig around in your junk email folder to see if you might have missed a communication from us. And then if you know, don't have a question today, but you find that you need to reach out to us to ask for help in the future, I'm going to also provide our phone number in the chat here so that you have that to hang on to for future reference. And then just generally, because I know you all are meeting pretty regularly, if there comes a time where you all are discussing, you know, a new topic and you think, oh, there's a training we would like from DRC on this topic, or we'd like DRC to come do a, you know, a legal intake clinic, feel free to reach out to me. Darlene has my contact information. Even though DRC is not as involved in this project as we were last year, we're still, it's still near and dear to our hearts, and we're happy to help if we can. So,
Thanks.
Thank
Very
you.
Megan, that was
Nice to see you all.
Good to see you. Okay, so then we got all our information from Megan. All right, so we're going to open this up to some questions and some comments and things that are coming in here. One person was talking about, this is a good question to sort through. Cynthia was saying that Medi-Cal can technically pay for this evaluation, but there are very few providers who are specialized in this area who accept Medi-Cal. What do we do? Anybody got any ideas? Any of our professionals?
Just real quick, I mean, we don't, unfortunately, there's been a lot of challenges with insurance funding, as I'm sure many people understand. From my understanding, at least for Southern California, a lot of times when people ask for an AAC assessment specifically for insurance funding, typically I refer to CART, which is Center for Applied Rehab Technology, which is a part of Rancho Los Amigos in Downey. From my understanding, all they do is take insurance. So they only take insurance. So from my understanding, Medi-Cal is included in that. I will put a link in the chat, but that's typically, and I know there's a lot of some independent providers too, like private SLPs who might be able to take it. So, and I think that's really case by case, but I believe that as well.
Yeah, and Cynthia is right. Like usually it's easier to kind of go through your school to get that evaluation, or the regional center. I believe in Southern California, there are several regional centers that do that. Like they authorize an evaluation. And then the speech, what's the unfortunate thing is that for insurances, I guess it's not unfortunate, but for insurances, insurance funding, you do have to have the signature of an SLP and an evaluation.
Right.
Yeah, I would add Cynthia's right. It's a tough situation. And I don't myself. And I've sent someone to CARD who actually got denied, and we're in the process of, because that's all that she had. And we're in the process of appealing and requesting specific authorization for out-of-network services. So for that family, I would say a couple of things. I would say that yes, you can appeal and ask for out-of-network support. The other thing, depending on the relationship you have with your providers, those that are available to do the assessment, that can meet that funding need, to have them communicate with someone that does have AAC experience. So I have worked with, I don't know if I should name the medical agency. I probably shouldn't name them. I've worked with therapists that work for medical facilities that didn't have the experience, but they were the approved provider, and that's how the family needed to get it paid. So I worked with them to help them get through the assessment and get it completed. So there's always a workaround. It's hard when Medi-Cal is your only source, but there's a workaround always. You just got to look for it sometimes, a little bit harder than others.
I think to add what Bernadette was talking about with speech pathologists who feel like they couldn't do it themselves because they don't have the equipment, they should contact us representatives, because that's part of our job, is to provide the evaluation equipment for them to do that. We're happy to do it.
That's a good tip as well. Thanks. Yeah. That's probably the toughest thing, is there's no easy mainstream. I mean, they make it seem like it is. Yes, you just go through your insurance company. That's so easy. And I understand it's just not. I know in my past experiences, asking regional center for the evaluation. Sometimes, and if your provider can say this, even that, because regional center's last payee, so the reality is they're kind of worried that they're going to get the bill for the equipment. But if you remind them that you have insurance, or you have the Medi-Cal, so it's just the assessment they're going to be paying for, right? And then you might have to go through some denial steps, but I have had people get it through that way. It just takes time. Tim?
I have a question for you all, since we have a great panel today. How much time do you spend with the individual and families on training after they receive their device? How important is follow-up for you, since you are in the industry?
I can answer that. So our process here at ATEC, so we usually do an evaluation, and then we end up recommending either a trial period if they've never really used an AAC device. And then after a trial period, gives us a good idea of what kind of device they will benefit from. We make an official recommendation, and then we recommend training. We do trainings by weeks. So we do like six weeks of training, and it's only it's circle of support training. So this will be the individual, of course, but also those supporting the individual. So family members, teachers, any types of therapists that want to be involved. I really do encourage, during their evaluation, I talk about all of this, and I encourage everybody to be part of it. And when it's time to do that training period, we kind of schedule different appointments with like different entities. But we do ongoing training, and it's measuring also those measuring goals of circle. So I provide also goals for circle of support, right? So are they aware of implementation strategies, programming, things like that. And then we kind of follow through those goals throughout that training period. What I found to kind of work is do a training session, and it can be ongoing. So after maybe 6 weeks, they have all the information I could give them for 6 weeks. I let them implement it for a couple of months, and I end up recommending additional training like around 2 in like 4 months or 6 months, depending on each family. But I would say we're talking about assessment funding now, but essentially the most important thing, and I know Bruce was talking about it, is the training and the follow-up and really holding those people accountable in working with the device, right? Because we have the device, now what? There's really, nobody really teaches families how to like do it or do these implementation strategies. They end up in a drawer somewhere collecting dust, and it's not used, right? So I do push that training really hard. And I would say it's one of the most important things in the AAC implementation.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bernadette. Yeah.
I was going to agree that yes, follow-up is very critical and important. I don't think that there is a blanket answer to what should be recommended. I think each case has to be individual. So the number of hours of training that's required, you look at the support team, the level of experience they have, their comfort level with technology, and you base a recommendation based on that and the communication scenarios as well. So all of those factors have to be taken into consideration when you're making a recommendation for follow-up services. But it is critical, it is important. And after that initial training session, I always recommend, I want to come back within 30 days right away, and let's take another look at it and go from there.
Perfect. I just gonna add, you put in the post too, Bernadette, that for people to know that there's an hour of free AAC consultations available through Task. It's in the comments at minute 4:47, so you can get the Task, task.california.ca.org. Okay. Thanks for that tip too. And Suyan has a question here, so I'm gonna have you unmute, Suyan.
Hi, so I have a daughter who is 6 years old, Maria assessed. We got the assessment through the school district, and she was recommended a touch chat. So she had that, and I was trying to like receive more training how to use the AAC device with her. And she has this tendency of like, this is mine, and then not like really allowing me to like touch her AAC device. So then I got myself an iPad, and then I bought the touch chat. And so now like she's kind of like watching me, and then she's sort of like letting me show her what I'm trying to like do. But still, like, I receive, so the school that she's in is very cooperative, and then so they were like, providing additional hours, and then I told them this isn't enough for me to learn. So then they like invited me to come to the speech session, with the SLP. But then the problem is, I think, so that school is a charter school, and like my daughter is the first student since the charter opened using the AAC. So then I feel like the SLP isn't really fluent in using the AAC. And my daughter, like at this point, like, I'm more concerned about like the expanding like long sentences, like that's kind of less, but her apraxia, so like the words that she's pronouncing and she's combining words, but nobody can understand what she's saying. So like I want to learn how to use the device like more readily so that like she can kind of communicate through that. But then like I wasn't sure like should I just go like privately and then like get training, and then is it like do I need to bring her every time I get this training, or can I like learn more like in the beginning and then like see if she's gonna be receptive? So like yeah, like I'm kind of like frustrated because now she's gonna be going into first grade with a brand new teacher, and the aid is changed. They already told me. So then like new set of training needs to happen, and yeah, so like I wasn't sure like what to do at this point.
Sure.
Just real quick, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go for it, panelists. Who is that?
Before Maria responds, I just want to say real quick for that particular situation, yeah, that is challenging, especially with a school team. A couple things just off the bat, I would say is one, because it is a new school team, you could always request and see if the school would be open to authorizing additional hours for us just to go out there and just make sure the team is at least has some foundational skills with the app. And obviously you can show as the parent to show like, hey, this is what I know, especially because at this point you might even know more than the new aid that's coming in, who knows? So there's that. But outside of that, for those individual situations, there might be alternative funding sources for additional parent training outside of that. Similar to TASC, we offer a free consultation, and this is just for anybody, for professionals, for parents. It might be worthwhile just to schedule a consultation with Maria to kind of discuss some of those strategies and possible funding options for you for some parent training. Because like you said, I mean, it's great that the school's helpful in bringing you into some of the training sessions, but that way you can kind of explore some maybe additional resources, potential funding for some parent support outside of that. And then Maria could also share more specifically like what that would look like for your specific needs. Because again, just like Bernadette and everybody else has been sharing too, is that it's so individual. I mean, it really each case by case and where they're at in the training and where the circle of support is in terms of what their needs are too. So just contact me. I schedule those. So they're just free. We can do it over Zoom, or if you want to come in person, it's up to you. But just email me. I'll put my email in the chat, but you could always schedule that, at any time as well. And, you can kind of discuss some of those options.
Thank you.
I'd also like to mention, and for any parent, that I don't know if you've looked into social media, but Touch Chat has a Facebook users group. They have a Touch Chat coaching. So there's a lot of resources online just to allow yourself to communicate with other parents that are in similar situations, find out how they're doing it. AAC meetups are starting a little bit more and more. So I would encourage you to, find avenues that your daughter can communicate with other people, be exposed to other people that are AAC users as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Sue, I was going to say for your daughter, it's really interesting because she is verbal and she's a little bit more advanced than, someone that is not using their speech to communicate, because she does get by using her speech. The problem with her is that she's not, her intelligibility is really low, and she does have problems using longer sentences. So it does come into like, you do have to have a certain skill with the device to be able to support her level of communication using the AAC device. I don't know if that makes sense. So I understand why the school district, because she is the only one in the whole school district using an AAC device, it's difficult, right? Because you're taking, not only are you teaching Ella how to do it, but the SLP is also learning and getting to that level where she needs that support. It's going to take some time. I kind of like what Bernadette was saying, there are a lot of groups, there's a lot of webinars. And if you do schedule an appointment with me, I can like direct you towards different webinars that are more fitted for someone like Ella, because she is an emergent context. She's a context dependent communicator, so she is a little bit more advanced. So yeah, so I would say that it is difficult, but I'm glad that you've taken the responsibility of buying your own iPad, learning. I think this is great. This is what we need parents to do because this is how the device is going to be successful.
Absolutely. Modeling is the #1 strategy. William had a question. Yeah, William had a question, and in answer to his question regarding putting it in the IEP, I do have or ask, and we have it written, that they write in the IEP that additional training will be held if staff changes. Yeah, you can actually ask them to write that just like that in the IEP. Mhm.
Yep, just get it written down. So Justin has something to ask you. I'm going to ask you to unmute. And Justin.
So I just want to make comment to our parents. You know, I was in North Bay. I was in transition class in Napa, and I am helping my dear friend Lapita Torres. I'm not A. I am the student in transition. So my teacher will help her put this up on the computer. And I sit down with her and I saw Kim, my old teacher Kim. This is how we do it. We plug in the computer to the time box and we draft the picture on the time box. And I love to help you guys. If you want me to come to the please let me know, because I love this amazing with time box. Ryan's to time box, Barry to time box. It's amazing. So please let me know. I love to training on Zoom.
Thanks, Justin. That's a great, write that down, you guys, Justin Hole. That's a great resource. Let's see, okay, we were talking about self-determination funding, so if you have questions on that, read the chat there. Janine? Oh, Nina, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in just because I know that self-determination, two things. Self-determination came up on the chat, and yet, yes, there's a very broad service definition. You know, that there are definitions of what that the federal government has put out in terms of what SDP, the self-determination program funding, can cover. And self-determination, it's an alternative way of getting services through the regional center from the traditional system where you're going through vendored services. And under communication support, you know, I mean, a lot of this, you know, is to be tested now by people in the program and what they ask for. But it does say the service also includes supports for the participant to use computer technology to assist in communication, training in the use of the technology, assessment of needs. So there's also funding for facilitators, interpreters, translators, readers, and reading services. So it's really worth you know, thinking about that as another, you know, as you're working on your budget and your spending plan and self-determination, to see what needs, you know, you might want to get covered there. And then I just had just a question for our panelists, and this is kind of it's a follow-up in subject matter on what Sue was raising, and that's the notion of like how communication partners fit into when some of your recommendations and what you cover. So would, you know, your thoughts on how and when, you know, you can support the need for communication partners kind of beyond the training of the family in the device usage, but, you know, also communication partner support. I'd just be really curious to see what you all think about that.
Anybody have anything to say on that part?
I do. I'm actually reading. My internet's a little sketchy, so it's coming along behind. I was reading her comments. I think that additional training, I don't know if you're asking if that's something that we recommend for communication partners. It's important, and
yes,
I definitely feel and see the need for that's something that isn't widely accepted right now. It's something that I think we are in all areas looking at how to put policies in place that will support that, but it is a critical component. It's an area of need right now. And I think we're still looking at the big picture of how to do that effectively across settings.
Yeah, I think, and I see you, Jesse and Bejas, real quick, but I think just to piggyback on that, the whole idea of having a trained communication partner, or a communication partner that knows you and your system is different than just having the family understand how the device works. And so when you are representing that or asking that in your requests of regional center or schools, you have to be real clear on that. Because if you're getting a recommendation based on an assessment that's just about the equipment, the recommendation for the follow-up and the extra support is on the equipment. But if you don't access the equipment without your communication partner, that's a different level of a conversation that never assume, right? So put that into the conversation and hopefully the paperwork, so that you can get that kind of support, because I think we have to start representing it as it's a barrier to not have it. Because you guys as communicators who need the trained person to be your support person are communicating with that trained person. You're not communicating without that trained person. So in a sense, you don't have communication if you don't have your trained communication partner, right? So you have to present that picture and really, not budge on it. It's all new territory, like Bernadette's saying, but I think we're in a place right now where there's enough of us talking about it, and we will continue to talk about it to hopefully start informing others and changing the conversation a little bit. So that's thinking of it in terms of it's a barrier if you don't have your communication partner, right? That's what this group is all about, is what are our barriers and how are we going to break down those barriers and build up the supports instead. And that's what we're focusing on here, but it's new territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think,
Bruce, do you want to give your insight on communication partners?
Sorry.
Oh, Tim was asking if I wanted to give my insight on communication partners, and thanks, Tim. I'm not sure if I have a lot to add. I think everybody's already kind of talked about how there's training on how to use the device for the user, the person who is using it, but and that's can be covered in therapy. But yeah, this training and supporting the people close to the user and learning how to support the user is a huge area. I find that even when I'm working with an adult user who has acquired speech disability, their spouse or caregivers may need a lot of support in learning how to make sure the system is running, just the technical aspects of the device, how to keep it running and working for them. Yeah, that's about all I can think of at the moment to add.
Now that's good. That's good for us to know too, is that this isn't a unique thing for people with developmental disabilities. All of us are awkward around change and difference. And so if it's necessary, it's just necessary, right? I want to go to Genesia. Do you want to unmute yourself here?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I just had a question. I've been teaching some music classes, and there's two people in two different classes that they have communication devices, and both of them, the support person, and I don't know if they've received any training or how the extent, I'm sure they've had at least a little bit, but one of them especially holds the, like, what do you do when people seem to be using it in a way, pushing, like taking it away from the person sometimes, or having putting their hands on certain buttons, like basically, helping them, but actually placing their hand, when it seems like a little bit like the person's not free to use it how they would like to use it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
How is there, like, basic philosophy resources that I could point them to without like intruding too much. And I don't want to come across judgmental, but I also, I don't know, I feel horrible actually. I'm like, no, say, what do you want to say? And then I'll be like, oh, so-and-so has a communication device and we want them to feel free to say whatever they want to say to anyone, this is how they communicate. So I try to make it really warm, but sometimes like one of them said, well, they're just going to repeat the same thing over and over again. For example, that was like one reason, so, which I get it. So it's just like navigating those things. I would love insight on that.
So I'm going to ask William to create something on that because he'll have something to say and to explain for you. But that's a great question. So there's some individuals, especially individuals with autism, who have such difficulty with their motor system that inhibiting or initiating, either way, it's not working out quite right for them. And so the support person is sometimes holding the board, and I don't know what's happening in the situation that you're looking at, but things that happen are people will pull the board away just to get that rhythm. Like, don't just keep pushing that. That's what they're kind of saying, because, and this is where you help, because you're the music person with the rhythm thing. And so helping out getting that rhythm so that they're not so impulsive. That's what people are trying to do. So this pulling away is just breaking that rhythm. Now, putting your hand on the keys, that's a no-no.
That's what one was. That was what was today. Yeah.
The communicator should be putting his hand on the key.
Right.
Now some people need some physical support just to slow themselves down so that their eyes and hands are working together. You can ask, it's fair, I think, to say to the boarding, hey, show me how you do that. Just so you can feel, because they shouldn't be guiding, they should be resisting if they are doing that. But
right. And it's not resisting, it's guiding. It was definitely guiding today.
That's not a good thing.
It's not good.
Right. I know. But I didn't know how to I just didn't know how to intervene, I guess.
You might say, hey, I don't know if you can find an opportunity. Is there someone that you work with? Did you want to get some support to learn some more about how you guys are communicating? And then refer them to us and we can help them learn how to use best practice, because moving the hand or putting it on for them is not best practice. And there's quite a few, fortunately now, there's quite a few of us around who can show you how to do it using best practice.
Okay.
But you got to figure out how to work that into the conversation. Offensive.
And what would be the best area? Like, would it be Disability Voices United to point them to, or would it be like, who would I point them to?
I'm a professional in that area, so you can reach me. Bernadette, I know, is becoming a professional in this area. And so if I could say that, Bernadette, sorry. So she might be somebody that you could refer to as well, but we for sure can get them then connected based on where they live and such.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching out for advocacy.
Absolutely. And I might add that it's okay to just ask, are you using resistive support? Or, maybe I was just curious what level of prompting they require. Okay. So that just kind of opens the conversation in a nice, friendly kind of way. I'm kind of, I want to understand, because as she was saying, there's a big difference between providing resistive support and guiding. So you could just maybe ask that just to open up the conversation and start the dialogue.
And you can't
tell. We don't want a human word prediction guiding us what we want to say.
That's right. That's right. Okay, I'm gonna let Beas go. Beas.
Thank you.
Hi. Well, I just wanted to thank the panelists for coming on to our to this Communication Access Connect. And I just wanted to ask you guys, I know that it's important for people to have the professional consultations if they need AAC, but I wanted to ask any of the panelists if you know of any good support groups that people with AAC or parents or both can interact with others to talk about, about devices, so that way they can, besides getting the consultations, they can get that firsthand experience of talking with people who have actually used those devices or are using them.
That's a good question.
Real quick, thank you so much for bringing up that question. It's interesting because Maria and I are actually working on a plan to provide some parents and caregiver support groups for people who use AAC. We're probably going to explore that sometime next year. We're looking for additional funding to make it more of a broad program that can be replicated in many areas, but we're waiting to see if we'll get funded for that. But we still will probably try to do something like that. But we are providing some, or we have a plan to provide some user AAC groups for the Lanterman Regional Center. Sometimes we are able to expand beyond that, so I'll have to contact them to see if I can put that out there. We'll have it for children and adults. And so if anybody's interested in that or would like to just be notified, if we are able to invite those who might even be out of the Lanterman area, and we'll probably have a variety of ways to join, whether it be virtual or maybe some in person, depending. So if you're interested, definitely feel free to email me. But I did put in the chat, because Carrie mentioned it too, is that we used to have an AAC users group for adults in Orange County that was run by Kim Bong years ago. I'm sure many of you know her, but obviously we haven't had it in a long time. But I would love to also know if anybody else knows of other AAC groups that are out there, because I always love to refer, and I'm always getting questions from people who use AAC or parents to kind of know what those groups are. We definitely see that need, so that's why we're trying to write this grant for next year. But you know, I'd love to know if anybody knows of any groups that are going on as well. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of groups, so this is
I'm
good.
excited to tell you guys about a group. I'm going to try and type the RSVP in the chat. I'm looking at the flyer now, but AAC user meetup, there's actually one this Saturday. Is it the Saturday the 23rd? Yeah, this Saturday, July 23rd from 3:30 to 5 in the city of Hawthorne. So I'm going to put the name and the email in the chat. And I know this isn't her first one. Oh, you're on. You're here, Cynthia. You talk about it. I see you now. Go for it.
Go. Okay, let's bring Cynthia on.
Oh, I think I'm good. Hi. Hi, everybody. I am Cynthia Terrianto. I'm a speech pathologist also. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the official introduction people are doing before. Go by she and her. I've got my hair pulled back and my sweaty chasing my client across the streets hairdo from earlier today. I just recently in the new year opened a small, it's really just me, a small, now we have a clinic, brick and mortar, but I'm doing mostly home visits, some school evals, and then seeing kids at my facility in Torrance. Yeah, we're lucky we have like this really big outdoor patio that's right next to the elevator. That we've been allowed to use for free. So I decided just to put it out there. So this weekend we're hosting just a free meetup for this first one's geared towards adults or teenagers who are maybe could benefit from meeting someone older. We only have a small handful of people coming this weekend, but I'm hoping it'll just be sort of like a brainstorming session to gather interested people together and kind of figure out what people would like to see of it and how we can expand it. But yeah, so I'm excited. And then also just to add to that, and maybe it can be, I know Lauren is up at Lanterman. I had a very long awaited with lots of buttons pushed to finally get a conversation, official meeting with Harbor Regional Center today. I'm vendored for early intervention with them, but then was really, I really love working with adults as well. So they are supposedly, gonna vendor with me to start doing AAC assessments for over 21 and then providing that follow-up support, and maybe it seemed like they're interested to develop some programs like this too. So see if we can have a North LA and South Bay / North OC sort of a thing going on between myself and ATEC.
Oh, Cynthia, you gotta stay involved with us here because we gotta use you as a resource.
Okay. Yeah, so I posted the flyer on there. You can, and I'll just stick my, oh, there we go. Someone put the website with the little events link there. So all my contact information is on there. But yeah, I'm psyched for the Harbor Regional thing to hopefully come through as it sounded like it was going to today in the meeting, because it's just, there's nothing, for after you get out of school, unfortunately. So yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Sure.
Justin, just before I go to you, I'm going to read what William said that in response to the communication partner question that Genesia had, and then we'll go to Justin. William said, I think that access to communication should be freely given. Supporting someone through motor loops is much needed. Sometimes I need a low-tech option to help break a loop, such as a whiteboard with choices or a letterboard to help me find the first letter of the next word and get started again with on my AAC. Great. Oh, and then, okay, I see Lulu, and I'm gonna go to Justin, and then I'm gonna go to Lulu. You guys are awesome today. Okay, Justin, go.
Me, I have a question to all parents or I could see how many people have a disc that go to Dynamics or UBS core. So that's my question. I love to come to training. If you need help, please let me know.
Great, we can answer that in the chat for you. That's perfect. Thanks, Justin. Bernadette, Lorna has a question from one of the Spanish speaking persons in that channel, and she's asking, Bernadette, do you do evaluations independent from the school district?
Yes, I do.
Great, okay, thanks. Wow, let me follow, this is hard to follow all this stuff. Okay, I'm all caught up. We have a few more minutes. Megan says, so no one has to scroll back too far. Just a final reminder that if you are have a lingering question on your legal rights related to communication supports, sounds like if you do, or another disability related issue, you can sign up to speak with an advocate at DRC. She gives you the link, it's in the chat here. For the professionals on the call, please feel free to refer clients you serve. So yeah, if you're really struggling to get your needs met and be heard and get access to communication, I think that the more we start talking about it with DRC, the more they can hone in on how we're going to solve these problems, because they're a great help to all of us in that fashion. Veas, did you have something you wanted to say? Oh, wait, you're muted, Veas.
Well, I might have accidentally kept my hand raised. I think I looked to try to lower it, and I thought it was because I asked before. But
you're lowered now. Okay, no worries, thanks. Okay, Monique Craig says, great topic today. I'm interested in receiving a flyer or info on the event this weekend, as well as the future events. And she's at the SCL, I don't know which one that is, one of the regional centers. Yeah, we got to figure out a way to, let's see, that was Cynthia's, right? And so where did your event, oh, there it is. It's at minute 5:21. That's where you'll find the event for this weekend. Oh, South Central LA, perfect, okay, great. And then just another reminder that we're hoping that all of you guys who are, especially the communicators, sign up for the, I don't know who this is coming in on her screen here. What is happening here? Did we want that? Okay, sorry. Sign up for the Emerging Leaders Program if you're interested, and help talk about that with people. And then we have, oh, here's another event. Gosh, we could do events announcements, which is awesome. Jazzy Talkers, which is August 12th at, from 11 to 12, AAC Users Social Group, mentoring individuals to communicate on their own with support, friendship, leadership, and good examples. Meetings are held virtually via Zoom. And so that's August 12th from 11 to 12. Yeah, and I can help people too with that. Lulu, did you have another question? I'm gonna have you unmute, Lulu.
Gracias. Sí, yo quería preguntar si no me quedó muy claro la parte donde uno puede solicitar por parte del medical. Creo que dijeron algo que no está muy claro, pero estaba mirando que no no es fácil solicitar esto por parte del medical para hacer una evaluación. Entonces, ¿cuál sería una buena opción según la experiencia que ustedes han tenido con las familias que han trabajado con ustedes?
Is this a school age person or an adult? Lulu? Ernest, can you ask her if her person is school age or adult?
Es una persona menor de edad, pero entiendo que lo puede hacer por el distrito, pero muchas veces no, el distrito no hace una buena evaluación y es importante que se haga también la parte del medical para que se trabaje y se tenga también la otra parte, porque en la escuela solo dicen vamos a trabajar con lo que afecta la educación. Entonces pienso que no es suficiente esto.
Right, okay.
I was just going to answer at least a couple questions. So one is for the insurance. What I would recommend if you do want to try to do insurance is to go directly to the provider who does accept insurance, because a lot of times they're the ones who are going to help facilitate that process. So like if you went straight to CART or a provider who takes it, they will help facilitate that process. Part of that might be then here, fill out this paperwork, get this prescription, but they will be able to have like the template information to make that request. So that's the insurance. And then I think that doesn't necessarily matter what age, it's just kind of insurance in general is typically what I recommend is contact that provider directly. So instead of you going through the insurance channels and then going and then maybe they need something different. So just contact them first and say like, what does that process look like? What paperwork do I need to get completed for insurance? But just a kind of a quick note about school age children getting outside assessments, not to say that you can't get an outside assessment outside of the district. And you definitely can, you can do it at regional center privately or whatever. And that's fine, but do also understand too, that sometimes, not always, school districts don't, just because you get an assessment done outside of the district doesn't mean that the district is going to implement that device or that system. So you can present it and hopefully it could be, it'd be well received and they'll be on board, but some districts will say, well, we weren't involved in this process, whether it's an IEE or an internal assessment or whatever, and they may not accept it nor implement it, because at that point they're not necessarily obligated to do so. But I mean, obviously you advocate as a parent and you share that assessment. Oftentimes they can be receptive, but just know that even if you get one outside of it, the district isn't always or doesn't always have to be receptive to that. But so there is kind of that challenge. So, I mean, it is a challenge to get assessments through a school district, but if you didn't want it internally through the district, you could always request for an outside assessor outside of the district. So a non-district staff that's contracted with a provider to do that assessment, school district funding, and they're still kind of involved in that process and it'll be a part of that IEP team. So you could still get that outside opinion, but still kind of be involved with the district. But again, there's pros and cons to doing it because like you said, they're focused on access to curriculum and so training the school team, but not necessarily the parents. If you need that or want that, yeah, definitely explore other options, but just know that, as much as you can try to still involve them in the process, I think typically in terms of implementation and kind of making sure that the school team understands that, we want to work together is going to be more successful rather than some districts who feel like I'm on the defense because you went outside and you're trying to make us do this. Sometimes can be resistive. So just kind of know that there's these different options and you kind of just have to weigh it out in terms of, what's appropriate for your child and what kind of support you need. But just know, I mean, you still can do it, but just know that sometimes that does happen or some districts don't accept outside funded devices in their schools too. Because I know like LAUSD has a hard time with that sometimes. So again, just kind of weighing out the different options. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much.
¿Alguno de ustedes trabaja con CalOptima? Ay, no sé si me escucharon. ¿Alguno de ustedes trabaja con Cal Optima?
No. No, but Optima is through Medi-Cal. Is it through your Medi-Cal? Yeah, right. So maybe like we were talking about this earlier, it's just harder to find centers that do accept insurance. The only one that I know of is CART, which is in Downey, California. And I believe you still have to kind of get a referral from your doctor. So, but other than that, I don't know of any other facilities.
Well, thank you all for joining us. It's 5:32, and so thank you for our interpreters for hanging around. We're going to have to end it here, but clearly we'll be talking about this some more. This was a great conversation again, but really awesome. And I think that for me, a lot that came out of it was there's a lot of barriers, which is what we're trying to figure out here, that we have to help break down. And bring people together and make access to communication a little bit easier for everybody that needs it. So thank you to everyone. I encourage you to join us next month. We're going to have Lateef McLeod presenting with us, and that's going to be really great. You'll see more on Facebook and our constant contact emails. So thank you very much.